Absolutely, Busi, and it remains to be seen exactly in this particular church that's starting to fill up, as you can see, whether the members of the South African Council of Churches here in the province will agree perhaps to certain issues that have been raised by the health department here in the province. They've really appealed to them to, take this matter really seriously and take into consideration some of the effects, or rather the socio-economic issues that come into play here. We know that there are quite a number of people, Busi, that not only see this place as just a building, but it's a place of faith, it's a place of healing, and some may even argue that what better way to find healing than from God himself. But now the biggest question is, will they be willing to step out of the house of the Lord to get a healing? I've got with me Reverend Awedzani Nemaukhwe, the Limpopo Provincial Chairperson of the South African Council of Churches. Quite a difficult time, to be in churches at this particular point. I mean, you're seeing, the government coming out to say, this is the message that we'd like you to try and convey to the public. These are the ways that we'd like you to try and look into the way that you run and you conduct your preaching in your churches. What is at your disposal at this particular point? What have you done as churches to ensure that there's very minimal interaction?
Well, Linda, it's very difficult indeed. These are difficult times that we find ourselves, not only as a country, but also as churches, because we don't exist in a vacuum. Yes, we're finding it very difficult. This morning we were in church, and when it came to a point where you needed to say to your parishioners, greet each other, you could see, people were taken aback. People are not as free as they would normally be, to engage each other. During communion, you see the difficulties, because of what people have heard and what they are hearing as it relates to this virus. So these are indeed difficult times that we face as a nation, as churches, and that is why we thought we should come together like we are now and address church leaders so that we together agree as to what do we do from here. Once the MEC finishes with their address, we will then remain behind as church leaders, talk our way through, say to ourselves, what do we do moving from here going forward, so that we help government in containing the virus, so that we don't spread it, because that if we're to spread it, you look at our context as a province, how rural we are, the kind of people we have some of the poorest within our midst. So we need to do the best we can to find a way of containing this virus. That's why we are here, so that we can talk among ourselves and agree as to what do we do from here going forward.
One of the things that she mentions is, looking at various other ways of conducting your business. She says, you can preach via Skype, but of course there are effects that come into play. You mentioned that you preach to some of the poor here who could really be in need of spiritual healing, right? The issues of cost come into play, not only for the person but for the churches as well. A lot of people have said that churches are not even paying tax in the country, but looking at the level of influence that you have, is it a cost that churches can really bear at this particular point?
Unfortunately, if we were to go, the digital media way of broadcasting these issues, you'll see for yourselves. Some of the churches we have do not even have a computer, so it would be very difficult to Skype for a pastor to stand and speak to his parishioners. So all we are trying to do again is to call for calm, because people are already panicking. Somebody was telling me that in other places certain basic amenities are stocked out because people are beginning to panic. So we want to call upon our people, and say, let us not panic. Let us not allow fear, to engulf us, envelope us to a point where we are no longer able to do anything. We believe that with God, nothing is impossible. So we will hear the message that government wants to relay to us about the virus, and we will then seek ways to say, what is it that we can do? Not only, amongst ourselves. when people are already now infected, what do we do in terms of pastoral care as the church? Because the church's role is also to care for the needy, for the frail. And that's basically what we want to try and do. So this gathering will give us a way forward and a sense of understanding where people are, particularly these as leaders. Because if these are well informed, then you know that the members that they lead will have a better way of dealing with the virus and moving forward from where we are.
And I mean, it's not, before I let you go quickly, it's not the first time that we're hearing of the virus. What level of measures have you put in place as churches while you're preaching the word of God? In terms of education, what have you been doing? Because there could be a lot of myths around, the coronavirus itself and how it could possibly link to the Bible.
Well, we have already started speaking to our people. We have already started teaching and making sure that we do not do what we did when HIV and AIDS broke out, where people are discriminated against, stigmatized, because they've actually come out and said, I am infected. We need to find a way of saying none of our people will feel isolated because of this disease, because of this virus. We will do everything in our power. And that is the reason we have called the MEC to come and address us, so that when we leave here, we as leaders are better informed as to what is it that we say to our people so that we don't mislead them. I've heard that there's a video that is going around in one of the university where a person of Chinese descent was videotaped, and he's now being labeled, his name is now Corona because he comes from the East. So we want to try and avoid these kind of things as we move forward. Teaching, and teaching all the way. It will help us to address the virus and the impact that it may have on our people.
All right, there you have it. Reverend Awedzani Nemaukhwe from the South African Council of Churches here in Limpopo. He just had to rush to start that particular meeting, really raising some of the issues. It seems they are willing to come to the table and really learn more about the coronavirus, as well as hear what government really has to say in the message that they preach out on Sundays. He speaks about issues of costs that may be involved here, saying that some of the churches don't have enough funds. He mentions that they preach to some of the most poor people here in the province, and it will pose as a challenge for them, but it's something that they are willing to look at and will then pave a way forward following this meeting that they will also be meeting after the MEC has addressed them.